Hello and good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Hello, hello. Good to see you all. All right. So let me just give a preface here to our masterclass tonight. So as you know, I learn from my mentors and then I implement and I see what's working. And two of my mentors, you know, the two mentors that I have, Shanae Moray and also John Lee, two of them have used audio events extensively to get exposure to new people and also build a relationship over time that eventually, hopefully, leads to people becoming your prospects and your clients. The audio event trend started before LinkedIn ever had audio events, and it started on an app called Clubhouse, which I know Michelle is familiar with it, Kelly is familiar with it. Trish, I don't know. Trish, have you ever been on Clubhouse? You can give us a thumbs up if you have. So Clubhouse was something that I learned was really very dynamic and very heavy in use during the pandemic, of course, because people had that need to communicate with each other, and a lot of people prefer the audio only format for obvious reasons. You know, it's just a lot easier. And I think that during that time there were a lot of skills to be gained, a lot of communities to be built, and I myself missed out on that kind of prime starting time of Clubhouse. So, but I think the skills that were really there to be gained are, for example, the ability to hold a room, manage a room, organize a room, structure a conversation. And that is why when I learned that Reese, who has graciously offered to be our presenter tonight, that it's basically her 2-year anniversary on the Clubhouse app, and that she has actually, for her business, she has been using Clubhouse and maybe even audio events on LinkedIn, she will tell us, to convert people into her patients. That's when I thought that's really going to be interesting to hear and learn from her. So I don't know. Let's see. Do we all know each other? I think the group is small enough to give a brief introduction, especially since Martin just joined us, and I think Martin is new to most of us. So I'm going to start. Let's keep it to a minute. Just quickly, my name is SHANKX Poncelet. I own and operate a healthcare public relations agency in San Antonio. And what I have recently started is also SHANKX Academy, which is what we are here for right now. It's basically teaching people how to be visible online and how to do a lot more on their own as well. Reese, I think you can give your introduction when you start your presentation. Maybe we'll go to Kelly next. Kelly, can you give a brief introduction?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Messing with my speaker. Yes, my name is Kelly Pickett. I attend SHANKX Academy every morning, working on my content on LinkedIn. I own with my husband an insurance brokerage, and we also facilitate the plan creation and solution or healthcare solutions for brokers.
Awesome. Thank you. Dr. Trish, are you in a position to speak? If not, we're going to move on to Michelle.
Good evening. I'm part of SHANKX Academy as well, and I own SOAR Career Coaching for Professional Women. I've had over 30 plus years of experience in executive leadership, particularly in the healthcare space, and I now help women in career transitions for advancement, and also those who are stuck in their current organizations run towards some other type of career path, and also those that have had a disruption in their tenure at work through a reduction force, or even, sometimes a reorganization or a firing.
Thank you, Michelle. Martin, are you in a position to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Sorry, I live right on the Mardi Gras parade route, and so our signal, so many thousands of people down here in Louisiana that my signal keeps going in and out, not because of anything other than too many people on the cell towers. But anyway, Martin Pratt, have a couple communities on LinkedIn. I think I signed up for the Academy a while back. I have a 16-month-old. So between getting no sleep and just getting acclimated to this constant daily content. My wife is, we own a digital agency, and she's been doing really well on her TikTok. So I've been bouncing between TikTok, LinkedIn, and I have a bunch of clients that I work for that are media companies and helping them craft their strategy content-wise. So it's been a busy couple of months. So I know I signed up for the Academy probably about 2 months ago now. It's my first time coming.
Okay, well, awesome. Better later than never. We're glad to have you, Martin. And I think at this point, we can hand it over to Reese. Reese, again, thank you so much for being available for us tonight. And I'm looking forward to learning from you.
Hello, everyone. I am a therapist and also an emotional focus coach. And my niche is usually clinicians like myself, dealing with helping people process their trauma, and then we having the secondary trauma and not having proper places to dispose of that. But my experience with Clubhouse is like Shankar said, 2 years ago, I was working with a coach who told me that it is a good thing. It's a good idea to join Clubhouse for building community and, credibility when it comes to the type of work I do. So I joined Clubhouse, I think February 15th, 2021. And the first thing I had to do is join a larger community because of my background as a therapist. There is a larger community of about maybe 230-something thousand club members. It's called Two Brook for Therapy. And I think the reason is that then you gain traction, you are part of the club. And the cool thing about that club is because it's that huge, people were just offering different, the title of the club is Two Brook for Therapy, right? So, clinicians were just volunteering our time. Literally, people were doing meditation. Some of us will hold rooms to just do therapy. Literally, people will come in and problem solve. And the room I joined was such a interesting room because the room didn't shut down for a week. So clinicians will sort of rotate, right? We would all sort of sign up, volunteer an hour and a half. So I threw myself in there. That is how I got into the habit, because I would host maybe 3 hours straight with a few people supporting, because once one person commits, then the others can say, I have 45 minutes here and, here and there. So that is how I got my start. So 3 to 4 months into doing that, like on a consistent basis, it gave me the confidence to be like, let me start. Actually, at that time, clubs were frozen. Clubhouse was still beta testing when I joined. So clubs were frozen. And so as soon as, clubs 3-4 months later, clubs started opening, I was confident enough to say, you know what, let me, register my club, which I did. So I call it the Emotional Oasis. So the idea of my club was to get exposure to what I do. And, I'll curate rooms about emotions. I do that twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays, and I hold them for 2 hours. So some of it, every Tuesday and Friday consistently 2 hours. I run my room for 2 hours. And some of the challenges is, talking about emotions is not a fun topic. So rallying to get other moderators around that is a little tricky, because first of all, most people, it's not an easy conversation that anybody can join and just, keep rolling. People will come with some specific questions. So that was the issue. It was difficult to find clinicians who could commit for that 2 solid hours. But I would host the room, from the beginning, of course, algorithm issues or nobody knows you. So you would have to, sometimes I was by myself, 1 or 2 people would join, back and forth, until the word got out and, people would come around and people would come around and, realize that, wow, these conversations are happening, in reference to anxiety and all these different things that we're all going through during the pandemic. And so I kept at it until, a few people got comfortable enough. And actually the next hurdle was people were uncomfortable talking about those things, those deep things in that kind of a setting. I mean, yeah. But we got to a point where it got very interesting, and then people began to sort of trust the process and will come in, and then the floodgates will open, and, we would sort of either walk them through, okay, even though we are not doing therapy here, we are here, in a safe space, supporting each other. So that is how, slowly it went on for maybe another 6 months. But then I started getting, and then still in beta, but then they created the back channel. So now with the back channel, because formerly, if somebody was going to connect with you, they would have to go to your Instagram, right? And send you a message. But then the back channel was created, and so people would back channel like, what I want to work with you, or what do I need to do?
Can you explain what back channel means? Because some of the people here might not know the terminology.
Okay, so back channel for Clubhouse is a little arrow where people can sort of text you, send you a text questioning, but there is also a trick with it. If you follow each other, it is instant. You will see the message. But if you don't follow each other, let's say somebody who came to the room but does not follow you, texts you, there is like a hidden message request that you literally have to go to the message request to be able to see it. And so for me, from the beginning, I wasn't paying attention. So maybe somebody has requested, and maybe 2 weeks, it's like, before maybe somebody else does that, and then I'll press it and see all these different tests. So that was my, I am not like technologically savvy. So those were some of the pitfalls for me,
Okay, and can I ask a question? Because I want to make sure I understand this correctly. You opened a room and you have a group of therapists, and they basically volunteer to speak to the public about their emotions. Is that correct?
When I joined the 2 group for therapy, that is what we were doing there at the 2 group for therapy. Okay. But when I opened my own room, I didn't want that level of liability. So it was an emotional oasis, very generic, very simple. We didn't go into deep therapeutic sort of engagements. In my room, it is usually general topics. It is tied into, social anxiety and all these different things that we all face. Because I don't want that level of heavy topic, therapeutic kind of, for the sake of, you own your license, you practice therapy because you are licensed to do so. As a coach, it is different. So what I'll do in that room is give like general coaching kind of few techniques and tips, and that's about it.
Okay, and then when people started back channeling you, which is another word for messaging you, explain to us how that, and if so, how that has led to business over time.
Yeah, so then, at least people who are, sending you those type of messages are people who really are interested. So there is that filter already, just like lead generation. If they are asking the question, then you can get on that 10 minutes call with them, or, however you want to do it. So it led to that. So that was the sort of a one-on-one type of people. You explain to them. I do groups and I do one-on-one. And then sometimes, they might opt in for group because maybe that makes sense for them, or financially, important for them, or the fact that it's a group and they can, bounce off of each other's, energy and stuff like that. And some people opt out for doing, that individual piece. But what is interesting is there was another group that would also, people would, back channel you and just freeze when you tell them what the work entails, So based on these different parts and, navigating the space, I decided that, by the end of last year, I would do a 21-day emotional release challenge, a very sort of low level investment where, for 21 minutes, we'll get on the Zoom, 7 minutes, I will explain techniques, 7 minutes, people will literally practice, let's say a body scan, I will give them the 7 minutes with the instructions to really do it. And then 7 minutes for them to Q&A, and then we get off the Zoom. So 21 minutes, quick, for 21 days. And I would say maybe 40 people, express interest. And by the time we signed up and everything, about 25 people opted in. So then I realized
so that was a paid program.
Very minimal, like 21. Yeah.
Okay.
Just for the door, to open for people to taste. I would call it a taste and see, like, this is what you get. We will really help you release these emotions with these techniques. So yeah. So that's how I started on that. And I was inspired because on day one, it was so interesting that people didn't even know how to breathe properly, let alone scan their body. So I was like, oh, wow. Then this is something that I can run a full-fledged campaign on and keep going. And even when we finished, then a few of them started asking, what's the next step? So that has helped me to sort of create my program as the 21 days will be like the gateway kind of program. And then the second tier will be the emotional detox. That is my 7 sections, which is 45 minutes once a week for 7 sections. And then now I am working on like a maintenance group thing where people maybe will subscribe for a year and they will get maybe monthly or bi-monthly sort of maintenance so that we would not continue to burn out. So even out of just that 21 days, I've sort of tweaked my program into, this 3-tier thing that, I'm going through rebranding. So once all that is in place, I would do a full-fledged campaign on that.
Now, I see when I look at your Clubhouse profile, you have 2.2 thousand followers, which is a lot, but it's certainly not like crazy high number, right? So it's very encouraging that you tell us that even with those followers, you find it worth your time to do this.
Yes, and the reason is you'll be surprised that I am actually not on Clubhouse a lot, because whilst doing therapy and I was taking my licensing exams, I didn't have time.
Mhm.
So I would literally go into like 1 or 2 rooms just to get the warm up with the algorithm, and then maybe open my room. So like maybe 3-4 solid days a week, I am totally not on Clubhouse.
Okay.
So the numbers you see are just the fact that I open my room, because I'm not out there. Like if I was, I would be maybe 5,000 or more, or, yeah, but I'm not. And that is, I think, what is interesting about even having that kind of focus and not being all over the place. And yet people who know what I do, when the room is open, will show up.
Mhm.
But sometimes I'm too busy and maybe couldn't get into those other rooms that I would go just for the algorithm warm up, and it will show, because you open the room and the room will not show on your people's feed because you are not visible.
So what you're saying is the more active you are and participate in other rooms, the more your room is being made visible to others?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It makes a huge difference, particularly if you go to rooms that has that kind of traction.
Mhm.
Days that I spend my time in John Lee's room, believe it or not, he's also my mentor, but I don't have the time.
Mhm.
So days that I'm able to go to John Lee's room and visit other places, when I start the room, you will just see the people just coming in.
Mhm.
But weeks that, I have, to catch up with my progress notes and, do all different things, and maybe show up maybe in a room that doesn't have a lot of, traffic for an hour before I open my room, you will see the low numbers.
Mhm,
So you
mhm.
can tell that the
Okay.
more you engage, the better, it is.
Okay. Well, see how powerful this is. I didn't even know that John Lee was your mentor as well. I mean, it just shows how like we have Reese and I, we are like, we didn't know each other before, and then we happen to have 2 of the same mentors. It just shows the reach of what you can do online. It's really really inspiring in a way. So Reese, the question that I have, which is of course an evergreen question, is if I have not done anything until now, is it too late to get started? And
I don't think so.
okay, so what would you advise someone who says, okay, that sounds really interesting? What would you advise to start?
Open your room, put it on schedule, show up, show up, show up. Because for me, I believe the showing up builds character.
Mhm.
And remember, when Clubhouse was in beta and even up till now, the replay came on maybe 6 months ago. And I feel like it's a great advantage. Curate the room and leave the replays on. People come to listen. I have people who follow me because they listen to a replay.
Hmm.
So that's a powerful tool, right? But even without that, just for the fact that you show up, the fact that you open the room, you also build up your skill. Formally, I will have, like really deep research and do all kinds of stuff before I show up. Now, all I need is a topic. I'll show up and the ideas will flow. So as you do it, you begin to tap into like the reservoir of what you already have. And I believe that is what creates that authenticity that make people realize that, wait a second, there is something here. As a matter of fact, one day I opened my Friday room and a woman came in extremely distressed. What was the situation? She and her daughter were arguing. I don't know what the situation was, but she ran her daughter over with her car, literally.
Oh, wow.
Saw the title, came to the room. We talked, calmed her down briefly. She back channeled me. She winded up doing my 7-section program and went back to court, and she documented the changes. And so instead of sort of getting in the bigger trouble. She got into, I'll say, a mini trouble based on her tracking the type of work she was doing with me. And I feel like that is such a testament where somebody who didn't even know how to manage emotions will come into a program like mine and work those basic things out and be able to go back and, even show in a court, like, you know what, I after this incident, this is the journey I've walked. So yeah, but it's all because of Clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So what advice do you have for someone who is worried about how much variety in my topics do I need? Do I need to come up with a new thing every day, or how did you handle that?
I feel like the beauty with authenticity is the fact that there is something that you know, and that is what you are passionate about. And I feel like if you lean heavily into that, the topics will come to you.
Okay.
Because every day, we are skimming things. What I've realized is that we shouldn't even overthink these things. There is so much we already have. And once you open the room, it will connect. An example for me is, based on what I do, it was very difficult to find someone who could really understand what I was, those niches, particularly dealing with emotions. And I listened to somebody in their room, I back channeled them, and now they also have an entrepreneurial academy. So now I have signed up with them, and believe you me, life has gotten easier because now things that I didn't understand or doing the piecemeal thing all came together because we are working together. And 2 weeks ago, I was invited to speak at a conference based on somebody coming to my room and perching and, listening in and sometimes asking questions. And do you know that even at the conference, their introduction is like this woman runs an emotional oasis club, and you get in there and you'll be surprised at how much release you can have staying in her room for 15 minutes. I didn't know that, but this is how the person introduced me.
Okay.
So these wonderful relationships are forming, and sometimes you don't even know the impact you're having on people, but it's happening. And I feel like that's the beauty.
Okay, yeah, I noticed that too in the audio events on LinkedIn, is that the title, you shouldn't really get too hung up on the title of your room. It's kind of a starting point, but when people take it, of course, it still has to kind of be relevant to the general topic. But if people take it in a slightly different direction, you can just go with the flow and pour into that as you have expertise in the field.
Exactly.
So would you then say that, okay, I'm someone who is super busy, but I want to get started, I want to make a dent. Should I take like 2 days of the week, 3 days of the week where I have half-hour rooms or 1 hour? How would you structure that for someone?
Yeah, if that's what you can do, you are testing, so that 30 minutes consistency for maybe twice a week. If that's what you can do, get started. But the strategic thing is that, but then go into other people's rooms where you are engaging with the algorithm, because I feel like that is the key. Once you are able to do that and it start populating and exposing you, then you would gain traction incrementally.
And do you recommend when you go into other rooms, does that mean you need to try to also get on stage, or is just being present already doing something?
I'll say being on stage has two advantages, because then everybody that you follow is also getting the notice. And I feel like that also does something to your algorithm. And being on stage also means that for some interesting reason, when you're on stage, people will follow you, even if you don't speak, even if you don't say a word. So yeah.
So I have, because I've been to John Lee's mastermind in Bali, he kind of always puts me on stage and even makes me moderator. So it feels like I should leverage that a little bit more and run my own rooms.
Big time.
Yeah, yeah. I've not been doing that. I've focused on LinkedIn. Have you experimented with the LinkedIn audio rooms at all?
Not yet, but that would be
Okay.
my next thing, because it is, I would say, the easier version compared to Clubhouse, because you don't need moderators. There's no replay. You open the room if it's 45 minutes, you know. I think that the sophisticated part is, you know, advertising the room, opening, you know, the event, and I guess people resharing and all that. But I find that a simple version. And you know what is interesting? Out of Clubhouse, then people I met on Clubhouse is the ones who introduced me to SHANKX.
Oh, okay.
So for me, Clubhouse is where I got all these different leads to come, because I had been on LinkedIn and I wasn't doing anything with it. Until people were like, you know what, get back on LinkedIn and get active. And yeah.
What can you tell us about managing nervosity when when you are in a room and you have to run it?
I think the first few times you are conscious of yourself, and you know, even let's say you run out of gas, but so what? The beauty of, I think, audio is because nobody can see you, like, you know, we see each other here on Zoom. So maybe your voice might crack, but nobody will see it. So you can manage it, you know, and even you might be even reading a script and nobody will know. You might have bullet points and nobody will know, right? It is, I'll say, the lowest risk, you know, even if you feel nervous, to try. And believe you me, you do it a few times and you'll be okay. Because if I can do it, you can do it.
Okay, yeah. So do you, before I open it up to questions from the other members, do you want to get at all into like houses versus clubs? Does that matter at the beginning? Is that something we need to understand?
You know, the houses have been just not too long ago. I think at the tail end of the year 2022 is when those houses started popping up. And believe you me, I've been too busy to even check the difference. But you know what I noticed? I felt like those who already had the edge, like the John Lees with, you know, massive following, they are the ones who are leveraging those houses. I don't see people who really are not consistent gaining traction. Because there are houses that look very lonely. Like you would just see the person who opened the room. Maybe I'll be in my section. I'll go back and there's the person just there. But like a John Lee would open a house and I'm sure thousands of people will flock in right there.
Yeah. And do you know the functional difference of the two?
I believe for a house, then it's just not a general audience.
Okay, it's
people who maybe are already part of your club, who got special invitation to come to the house.
Oh, okay.
Meanwhile, the regular club, once it's on the Clubhouse streets, anybody can just, you know, walk in anytime and, you know, be there for as long as they want. And even I've noticed that with the houses, now I think you get like a guest pass or, you know, stuff like that when you go, yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. Well, that was really a lot of good information. So do we have questions here from other people? No? So Martin, you said in the chat that Clubhouse has been your largest ever audience builder and you're getting 20% return. What do you mean by that? How do you define return?
Sure. I came on Clubhouse in November of 2020,
And I was forced, my attorney said I need to be on Clubhouse back in June of that year. And I was like, no, I'm good. I didn't want to join another social media app. And he threatened to drop me as his client. So I got on, and I met a bunch of people that in early 2008, I started on Twitter, and I met a bunch of my old Twitter friends. And I was like, whoa, like everybody who was doing cool stuff in 2008, 2010 online was on Clubhouse. So I was like, oh, these old folks. And I actually met a mentee of mine who's doing extremely well. And I listened to the room that they were doing. It was a very loving, patient, graceful room about authors and helping authors to get their books published. So I was super impressed with not a non-toxic environment. And I was like, wow, okay, this sounds cool. And so, you know, it was pandemic. Unfortunately, my wife and I had a third miscarriage at that time. And, you know, I was just not in a great space probably. And so, as was said earlier, I, you know, stayed on Clubhouse 24 hours the first time I got on. It was just like phenomenal. But I was meeting a lot of people that I hadn't talked to online in a number of years. So what I was able to do, the young man that was running the room with my mentee, kept showing up on Saturdays before there were clubs, and you just could host a space, and we held space for authors every Saturday. And when they announced clubs, we got our club, and we built that club to about 20,000 authors. And what we would do is Saturdays and Mondays, we would hold space for Mondays were for new authors to ask any question they wanted and to promote yourself. And Saturdays, we would have market leader industry, folks who were at the top of publishing, agents, other publishing companies, and we would host how to get to a six-figure authorship. And so every Saturday would be a different person who was a extremely important person in publishing. My family owns a bookstore. We own one of the oldest bookstores in America. It's called Sisters Uptown Bookstore in Harlem. It's 23 years we've been in the business of books. So for me, it was a natural progression, but also I do, as I said earlier, the digital marketing and stuff. So there was a New York Times article about something called Black LinkedIn. And those folks that were in the article were actually on Clubhouse one Sunday. And I listened to them and talked and chimed in. And we started showing up every Sunday at 9 a.m. And we started off probably doing LinkedIn profile tips. And you know, unfortunately, the murder of George Floyd had just happened, and it was still fresh in people's memories. So it was a lot of conversation around diversity and inclusion, how to show up on LinkedIn authentically, how would that affect your job? And at that time, you know, Me Too had just also happened. So there was a lot of giving people space to talk about their lived experience at their job, and what advice would somebody else who's been in their industry, the same industry for a number of years, give them. So that turned into a club. That's about 7,000 people. We meet now. For 2 years, we met every Sunday at 9 a.m. Now we meet every other Sunday at 9 a.m. So in those two cases, the authors and then people on LinkedIn, people would come to me and ask me, can you help me with my LinkedIn profile? Can you help me with my book? My partner in the books, he had a funnel. And so when you asked about 20%, if I stayed, and this is not now, but if I stayed in the room for at least an hour, if there was 100 people, I could almost guarantee I'd have 18 inquiries in my inbox consistently. It was just crazy.
Was that with a link pinned or just people reaching out?
Both. Because this was, again, remember, we're in a pandemic, and I don't think we're going to, you're going to see the same results in 2023. But there is a resurgence on Clubhouse recently. So that's going to be kind of interesting. And there's a change and a shift to how people communicate. Mm-hmm. In that same time, one of the things I loved about what was discussed is showing up, I call it the 4 C's of success: commitment, character, content, and consistency. It's one of the few platforms I've used. I I started my online back in the mid 90s with Prodigy and CompuServe. So I look young, but I'm old. And so being on all these platforms, from Friendster to MySpace to Twitter to Facebook, and a lot of times being one of the first few people, I've never received a percentage of viable leads, email, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all the things, never received a viable interest in leads. Now, my wife, she just started on TikTok about a month or two ago. She seems to be receiving, she's a chef and she does these cooking videos of Creole cuisine. She seems to be getting some, maybe like 10% return for people that want her recipes or they want her. So that's a little bit high. Up until Clubhouse, I had no, one caveat, I hosted the first Black technology talk show on FM radio for 13 years in New York, every Monday night on 90.3 FM. So I knew how to speak, through audio, and I know how audio sticks with you. And you can kind of get right to the heart of the matter with audio and with your presence and with your authentic, being authentic comes through. People judge you, fake or real. So I think audio has a different way. I'm also an Amazon influencer, and I'm on AMP. That's Amazon's version of Clubhouse. And there's also Twitter Spaces and LinkedIn Audio. But I only find Clubhouse is where people are willing to let their guard down, as was discussed about therapy. One of the things that we try to do in our club for Sundays is to give people space to basically unpack whatever issue that we pick as a club subject matter. And in unpacking it, I have 4 other co-founders in that club. And so all of them are women. And I say this to every woman I meet, like, women have the ability to really hone in on what the temperature or sentiment of a topic is from a different perspective than men do, that resonates with a wider audience. You see it with Oprah, you just see it again and again and again. So women have I call it unfair advantage, but society doesn't tell them that. So they don't hone in on it. But the unfair advantage is that I guarantee you, even if you're at the supermarket or you're at your girlfriend's house and you're talking, you're sipping some tea and talking about something, the perspective you have on her tablecloth or the perspective you have on what her child just did in front of you, I guarantee you there are 100,000 other women that feel that same exact way. And all you have to do is go to a platform where you can talk about it, and then boom, you got a topic. But your original question was, how do I judge? So the longer I stay in a room, doesn't really matter unless it's an unpacking room like the Roth IRA, the new law that they have as far as how much you can contribute. That's an unpacking room that takes a lot of details in it. So I would stay in there for probably 3 hours, and I'm probably not going to get 20% for those 3 hours. But if it was a room where people are asking tips and tricks on LinkedIn and the new algorithm changes, or it's a room talking about accessibility and how websites are not following the American Disabilities Act and what can we do to make sure our websites are ADA compliant, rooms where people are passionate about and they also want to know more information, I'm getting the highest return I've ever gotten from any type of social media platform.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can attest to the fact that I run my company with a woman, and whenever we are together on video or on audio, like, I always get better returns, better reactions. So I can definitely attest to that as well. So the question then, I didn't realize you are so seasoned in this platform. So I'm going to ask you the same question. Is it too late to start from scratch on that platform?
No, it's not. The caveat I would say that the platform is changing And, you know, I don't know if you saw this Gary V, I think in 2021, he did something on LinkedIn, but for I think in 2021 or 2020, I don't remember which year, but he was doing I think it was every Thursday, he was doing a live, and he would for 2 hours. So it was one live, he had Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank. If you go on LinkedIn and just Google Gary V and Kevin O'Leary,
Okay.
you'll probably be able to find this live. That live blew my mind. That I keep referring to people to because it's a lot of information that live that was really poignant. But he said I didn't like. He was like, we're going to have to segment ourselves over 7 different platforms, 8 different platforms, and you're just going to have to deal with it. And I was like, no, you can double down on. I was doubling down on Clubhouse and LinkedIn, and that was my main platforms. I think part of the challenge with Clubhouse today versus 2 years ago is that they have switched to what's called houses. And that basically means, I feel like it means you have the ability, instead of creating a Facebook group, you have the ability to create the same thing in Clubhouse. But the difficult part for most people has been the audience that's on Clubhouse isn't the same audience on Instagram and isn't the same audience on Facebook or YouTube. So the challenge is the people who are on Clubhouse, they want to sit back, listen, learn, share, blah, 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 blah. The house concept boxes you in, whereas the club concept was more open. So you could randomly run into a therapy room, and the next room would be a dating room. The next room would be one of my friends created something called a playlist, and she has 50,000 followers in the playlist. And the playlist is she just played music. She came up with different playlists, and she would just play throughout the day different lists, and people would sit there for hours and listen to the music. That Clubhouse is gone. So now she would have to come spring. They said they're switching everybody over to a house, which means her 50,000 member club now becomes a house, and the house is a little bit more difficult to manage because anybody can open a room. And so that used to mean that you could box up to your 4 or 5 people you trust to help you run this club. With the house, any knucklehead that is a part of your space can then. So it's a little. And one side is good to start now, but it's going to flip on this side. So what I would suggest, and my suggestion would be, yes, you can start. Show up. We always talk about this. What's your intention? What's your why? So deciding that commitment, that 4 C's. What am I committed to do? I'm committed to generate more leads by blah, 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 blah. Okay, what's your customer avatar or target customer? Finding that and saying, that's my intention. I call it intentional intelligence, using your intention the most intelligent way you have access to. So my intention and my intelligence may be different from yours. So the intentional intelligence you're looking at is, I want to find this customer avatar on Clubhouse. How do I do it? I think by being a community member, where it may be I'm a part of some food groups, food clubs. I'm a part of some spiritual places. There's a grateful room I'm in at 7 a.m. in the morning. So I'm across a bunch of different SKUs, we'll say, or niches, but I tend to find the same people, which are people who are curious, they want information, and they're ready. That's the other thing that's weird about Clubhouse. Not say weird, but different for me about Clubhouse is that they're not the tire kickers. If they approach you, they're pretty much closed for the most part. They're not. Every other platform is, oh, let me get back to you. Like LinkedIn, I don't. To be honest with y'all, I don't do anything marketing on LinkedIn. As far as I just give, and I do not try to close people on LinkedIn. But Clubhouse, people hit you in the inbox on the app, or they hit you in your Instagram inbox, and they want to know what's the next step to take, which is unique. It doesn't happen. So being real clear about what your intention, why you're on Clubhouse, and as earlier said, don't spend hours and hours. Don't be like me. I ended up spending 8 hours, not now, but used to, a day on Clubhouse. And I did was generating income, so it was fine. But that was a bit much. And I probably got down to about 2.5 hours a day I spent on Clubhouse. But knowing what your intention is, who you want to attract, and showing up in the spaces. And if you don't know, you can do this any place. If you don't know who to follow or what clubs to go to, typically just type in the search bar a generic word, like just an industry that you're interested, you seem to get, traffic from. If it's quilting or if it's travel, and then look at those clubs and how you can tell, because the clubs are all going to go to houses and you can get an invite to the house, but how are you going to tell whether or not that's a decent club? It'll tell you when you go to the club that it'll have a less than, greater than. So meaning that they don't do any rooms, and it says less than, that means they haven't done a room in a long time. So that's a defunct club, or that's not even though it's got 500,000 members and all this, they may not do rooms every day. One great club that I wanted to share with everybody was that, and I have no idea, I did not do anything to get to be a admin in the club, but this is an awesome club for women. Is women, but the word is women, but instead of the E, it's X. Women in business. There's 391,000 members in that club. They do 20 rooms a week. So women, but again, E is an X in business. That is a very good club to be a member of. So yes, it's the right time. Be intentional, know who you're attracting, and then don't waste your time in a lot of drama places. The one thing about Clubhouse to say to avoid too is that whatever's popular, there's going to be a lot of rooms on that. So Chat GPT is popular. So there's a lot of rooms on that. You waste a lot of time in popular spaces. To me, I tend to be in spaces where people are, if it's somebody doing a room on how to grow hemp and how that hemp is could impact our ozone, I would love to be in that room because I'm learning something. That's the other thing too. I would say, this is my little 16-month-old. Yes, Ms. Zora. Know what you're on Clubhouse for. Let's see. Know what you're on Clubhouse for, but know what you're not there for. So the minute you see something, you hear something toxic, be out. Don't wait. Sometimes you hear it and you go, what? Did they really say that to her? Is that really, I believe in safe places and safe stages. And so the minute you feel uncomfortable, leave. Don't waste any time. Don't judge. Don't try. And I mean, maybe this great speaker that you really want to, you want to meet. You can hit them in a direct message. That's the other thing about Clubhouse. Direct messages on Clubhouse and direct messages on Instagram from Clubhouse, people respond to, unlike anything else I've ever seen. So you'll get a response within a day or so from this person. It'll be really hard to meet. But yeah, just be safe because the audio hits you differently than even video. Audio stays with you and it bounces around your head, can make a great day become a bad day. And you wake up and you had a dream about the damn room that you were just in. You're like, how am I dreaming? It's just so you can definitely build your business and build a following there and meet some really genuinely good people who really want to get things done.
Yeah. I have been in some rooms where I'm like, whoo, these people are rough with each other. And I didn't know, I think it's called the Million Marathon. And I didn't know, is this good Clubhouse etiquette so it's just kind of the wrong room that I found there.
And you know what I think that a lot of times people say this too, is to be careful about people speaking from ego. There's a lot of braggadociousness. I think everybody here, the 8 of us, we can figure that out. This person's total BS and it's a waste of my time. They don't have the receipts. You look at their social media. You can even look. This is the other thing about Clubhouse that's interesting to me is if you go to people's LinkedIn who are on Clubhouse, if you can find their name and find them, you might see a completely different. It's what's really nice is to be able to find people who show up on Clubhouse the same way they show up on LinkedIn, the same way they show up on, you know, YouTube. And those are unfortunately a rarity. It's not everybody doing that. And that's where for you, to me, the opportunity really lies, is that there is, you know, I do stages with, can't think of his name right now, but he's huge in LinkedIn profile makeover, and does, you know, I think he has like 500,000 followers on LinkedIn. And, you know, I always say I'll get his leftovers occasionally. And it's enough space on Clubhouse for people to eat, but they don't, a lot of people don't show up on LinkedIn the way they show up on Clubhouse. So all the, you know, accolades, I'm like, well, why don't you put your degree, you know, if you're a PhD, put it on Clubhouse, put it on LinkedIn. You know, so the fact they have it on Clubhouse, but they don't have it on LinkedIn is a little bit of a red flag. I'm not saying it's because again, LinkedIn is kind of, people are, you know, we've been taught that LinkedIn was a place that's very, you know, closed up and squarish. So you can't show up authentically centered in yourself on LinkedIn. That's not the case anymore. So a lot of people haven't adapted to that, but you know, you can.
Whoop. You got on
Follow
mute.
people who are, you can fact check a lot of people on Clubhouse by going there on LinkedIn and see if they really are who they say they are.
Awesome. Well, we have come to 7 p.m. and at least here in the Central Time Zone, and that brings us to the end of our session. I do want to give people another chance to ask questions if you have questions for our two amazing experts. One surprise expert, by the way, I had no idea. Martin wasn't planned, but when
sent out the email, I try to, you know, I keep my inbox clean and clear from garbage. So I was like, I know I signed up for this. I know I believed in what he presented. So let me go and support and let me learn something.
That's awesome. I mean, it also shows my my club members here that every email that you send out counts. You never know, you know, what it does. Was it the email that just came in?
Yeah.
So I had like 15 minutes left. I thought, hey, why don't you send out an email? Maybe someone will comment. It was great. So yeah, does anyone have a question? Dr. Trish, do you have one?
Well, I'm just going to say I'm not familiar with Clubhouse. I mean, I actually checked it out back during the, you know, when COVID first started, because I think a lot of people were going over there, and it seemed a little bit like the Wild West to me. Like, you know, I didn't know, like, going into a room, how it was going to be. And I don't know, I think that kind of, so everybody here on Clubhouse? No. I was just curious. I think because I went in there recently, probably within the last couple of months, because I heard Shanae talking about it. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go over there and see if I could find Shanae. And when I went over there, I experienced one of those rooms that you were talking about, Martin, that had a lot of members in it, but they hadn't posted in there in a really long time. So I guess I don't even know what kind of questions to ask about it.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no, sorry. That's okay. I mean, I think what my goal is to get you curious and just have it as another option in your journey in online visibility. Yeah.
Yeah, I would maybe like to go on there and find all of you that are on there at least, and maybe join in and see what it's all about.
And also, I just wanted to add for you, Martin, the fact that, you know, the timing of you getting on is also crucial, because 2020, even at the tail end, you can rack up your numbers, right? I think 2021, it became more competitive because then, you know, there was a flood. And the fact that you were staying in that room for hours on end pays off, because then it pays off with followers. Like I said, I was in school and, you know, taking all these exams and licenses. So I just pop in and out, and it shows when it comes to the following differential. So yeah, kudos to you. Even though you said very long, but guess what? It has, you know, earned you your following. So yeah.
I think I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, so I guess the next phase for me is really figuring out, the ROI on this for what your niche is. And these are all good concepts, but I'm a solopreneur, and so I have to figure out, no one else, and I have to figure out servicing my clients, but also what is my best ROI. And so I just was doing some searches, and there's nurses on this, but it's kind of not my niche. I looked at executives on this on Clubhouse, and they were saying that due to the fact that they were using it, corporate executives were using it because during the pandemic, because there wasn't any educational sessions live, so they kind of migrated to that. So I think it would be nice to have a follow-up on looking at your niche and figuring out how to do that, the process of it. This is a nice concept, but I probably won't do it unless I know that it's going to have an ROI, because I have to go in the right direction that's going to feed me whatever I need, to be a thought leader. And I've been using LinkedIn with pretty much success, and then my other question is, what is the major difference between the live events or live audios from LinkedIn versus, or is it just where your niche is?
Well, with Clubhouse, you can do replays. So, but back up to your first part of it, absolutely. You have to take the cost, the return on investment, and say, yes, that, and even with KPI, your key performance indicator, to me, what your niche, because I'm around a lot of people, medical professionals, they have dropped off of Clubhouse, the medical professionals as a group. But, I think that the thing, let's say, for instance, for whatever reason, you were able to do a white paper about the emotional toll nurses are having, and you wanted to get more audience and brand awareness for your brand, then the ROI for Clubhouse would be kind of interesting to you, because you get immediate response, you get people marketed the right way. The replays on Clubhouse can be marketed just like a podcast, plus you can download it and then upload it to your podcast. Because there's live interaction, it feels a lot better. The LinkedIn lives are live audio. It's still a little wonky. Some people don't know how to turn the mic on, turn the mic off. Some people say it's better on desktop. It's not better on desktop. So the LinkedIn live audio, and there's no replay. There's no way to save, unless you have to record it yourself. And then, but the thing I think that you could possibly, there are more, well, I shouldn't say that. For me, I think that there's more ways that I can find potential nursing audience through Clubhouse, and then clicking from that person's profile to Instagram. And when you go to Instagram, you click on following them, and then it tells you, there's 20 more accounts that the Instagram says you should follow, like their account. And you get on this rabbit hole of like, wow, I found this mother lode of people or content that's applicable to my niche, but it starts in Clubhouse, but then you take it over to Instagram. You're so right on point. You have to decide what's your intention. That's my whole thing about intention. Why am I here? What's the return on investment for me? And then how much of my time as a solopreneur am I going to put towards this for the return on what? Because, you could have the 20%, and then now you can't fulfill the 20% because there's only one of you. So then you go get a VA, and then you're paying the VA, and they're not doing a great job. So you got to take it, so it becomes this keep yourself busy situation versus actually make money and actually build a clientele that can actually afford you. And you should be charging, what you should be doing a 3x or a 4x charge to that clientele.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you don't need to be everywhere, especially not at the beginning of your journey. Some mentors, they talk about omnipresence, and I can see that once you have a lot of systems in place and maybe help in the background, but definitely in the beginning, my approach is to do something that you enjoy and understand. And again, tonight, definitely the goal was to get you exposed to another option. I think one where we can learn a lot. Again, I'm heavily invested in LinkedIn audio rooms, and I think there is a skill that is transferable from Clubhouse to audio rooms, because it's a little bit more quote unquote wild on Clubhouse. So if you can make it on Clubhouse, I feel you can certainly make it on LinkedIn audio. But yeah, again, thank you, Reese, so much for taking your time to teach us and share with us. And Martin, our surprise specialist who joined us, thank you so much. I am really honored that you are in my